Hello, everybody. Welcome to Authentic Hustle number 12. To all of our new listeners, thank you for joining us today. To the people who've been with us, all 12 of you from the beginning, thank you so much for showing up week over week so far. 12 episodes. It's been pretty cool. You know, when we started this show, we only committed initially to 10 just to kind of see how it goes, but we're enjoying it. We hope that you guys are enjoying it as well. And if you tuned in with us last week, you may have noticed that the format of the show has changed. So initially, we were all kind of trying to bring a topic to the table. We were finding that the show was going really, really long. An hour, we get it, is a lot for us busy professionals, especially during a weekday. So the show is now going to be 30 minutes. But we've thrown in a bit of a cool feature, which is going to be a random topic generator. So every single week we come up here, what's more authentic than not even knowing what the topic is that we're going to be talking to? And we're going to be rolling the roulette wheel to see what topic we get. It's randomly generated. We have submitted quite a few different business, life, political topics to it. We are also hoping that you guys, our listeners, are also submitting topics. And you can do that at .live. That's .live. Submit us whatever topics you guys want. And I think it's very likely we will hit it at some point on this show. VJ, are you ready to rock?
Yeah. Good morning, everyone. Welcome. Let's roll. Let's sprint today.
Let's roll.
We have will automation lead to mass unemployment or new job opportunities? Culture and pricing.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so they're three very challenging topics. Colin, you were the decision maker last week. I think this week we're going to have to let VJ be the decision maker. But I'm going to say I want to lean a little bit towards pricing. I like pricing as a topic. How about you, Colin?
Yeah. I think I always use pricing as an opportunity. So let's do it. VJ?
Yeah, I'm good with all three topics, but although I'm slightly inclining to this, let's debate
VJ,
pricing.
It's your call. No. It's your call this week because Colin got it last week. So this week it is your call. If you want to do automation, let's do automation. It's your call.
All right. No. Let's. I'm good with pricing. Let's do pricing. I want to engage with pricing too, so it's all good.
Awesome.
Pricing
okay.
it is.
Okay. Sounds good. Well, who wants to lead it off?
Go ahead, Colin.
Okay, I've been voluntold. I will. Okay, it depends what avenue we want to go down. But I love the topic pricing. And number one reason being is I've always looked at it as an opportunity to increase, right? And what I mean by that is anytime we come into a situation where costs are going up or, supply chain issues, that type of thing, it's always an opportunity to improve your pricing. And that's kind of where I'm, when pricing comes on the screen, that's what I always think of as opportunities. A lot of people, if you're on the customer end of it, they're diving, I don't want to say the wrong thing, but, a race to the bottom. How low can we go?
Yeah.
But that just depletes margin and that doesn't get you anywhere. It doesn't give you a great future, to tell you the truth. So it's kind of where I'm at with pricing is I just look at it as an opportunity.
You know what? I'm gonna give you an opportunity here to chat about the way that you guys do pricing at Hypervac, because I think that would be
Sure.
a great example to use. You obviously are manufacturing a vehicle from the ground up with a whole bunch of technology inside of it. How do you guys decide what is too much and what is a fair price for your products?
At the end of the day, we're very in tune with what our competitors are doing. But first and foremost is we've laid out what, the margin we want to be at and also what the market will bear. So we look at it and we will push price, as far as we can until we start to see sales, dropping off, that type of thing. But we don't just push price for the number, for the dollar. We want to back up our product or our quality with the price. The reason they're paying that price or we're charging this price is because they're getting every penny of worth out of it, if you will.
Absolutely. And it was funny because I interviewed Brad Warren quite some time ago, and he had mentioned, he was in the windshield business, and he said, look, it doesn't matter what we want to charge. The market ultimately dictates the price, right? If you can put a price out there to the world, whether or not somebody will pay that price or not, you can't make that call, right? They're either going to buy the windshield or they're going to shop around until they find the next one. At the end of the day, he kind of mentioned that ultimately pricing should be whatever is competitive for your market. I think a lot of companies really struggle, though, with that. In your mind, how would you find out like what you should price? Do you think you should call like 10 competitors, figure out what they're pricing and see if that makes sense for your organization? I know for you, that would be really hard because at the end of the day, there's not a lot of competitors in your space.
No, you know what the easy part is, though? AI is bringing that in to make it easier. I can do a quick, even a deep seek search on certain products outside of the trucks and the trailers, everything else we manufacture. And within a matter of minutes, I can have every price out there in the marketplace.
Wow.
It's pretty easy. And the other part is when we started this company or bought this company, one of our mantras was we're going to be the Airstream of the industry. What we meant by that, and I think every industry can do that, or every business can do that, if you're not a dollar store, right? How do we become the Airstream? Well, the Airstream trailer, started in, I guess, World War I. After World War I, they started. I've read up them, I've studied them, and they said, this is the price we're going to be at. People, not everybody's going to be able to buy it, but we're going to back it up with quality. And so 75 Airstream now is selling for ridiculous amounts of money, probably 4 times, 5 times, 6 times what it actually sold for when it was manufactured.
Yeah.
So to me, we're doing the same thing. Is we want to build a product that's going to last longer than it should, longer than expectations, but it's also going to hold a value at the end of what would be a competitor's life for the same product. So I think in any business, whether it's VJ or you, Kelly, is you can sell an Airstream model. Here's the quality that we're going to give to the brand, and it's going to be worth that dollar.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, we can race to the bottom and not charge enough, but the longevity of the company is not going to be there. We have to sustain ourselves, and we have to carry a decent margin. And I'll back that up with, there's a number of companies right now involved in the trade war and the tariffs. They have not built in enough margin for the what if in case of, because it's happening now. And they're basically, I've seen them on the news, I've read about them, where they're saying, nobody understands, we're going to be out of business in a matter of days or a month. But you priced yourself out of the market is what you did. And I understand that they were going after volume or they were going after a certain market.
Yeah.
But if you don't price properly and you don't know, if you're not prepared for what could happen, you're just not prepared.
Yeah. Yeah. I think a lot of companies are undervaluing themselves and charge way less than they probably should. Not to mention, I think most companies as well rarely reevaluate or revisit their pricing. Usually by the time they're revisiting their pricing, they're already in trouble, right? Like they should have probably revisited it a year, 2 years, 5 years ago. In your mind, like how often do you revisit your pricing for your vac trucks?
Every week.
Every week.
So as a matter of fact, with our inventory system, percentage based, anything that comes in as an incoming good is automatically put into the system, and it's called SOS inventory. It automatically adjusts our pricing to our margins.
Wow.
So that way, if we leave it up to human, I don't want to say human error, but human error, there will be an error. There will be something missed. And let's just say it's a $5 part, right? It could be a $500 part.
Yeah.
It doesn't take long. And then it's very hard to back out if you're not on top of it. You don't have your thumb on the pulse. Very hard to back out and, dissect it down to figure out what's going wrong here. Where are we losing it? So I'll give you an example. We have about 1,200 parts on a truck body.
Yeah.
Too many parts to let that go by before we need to figure out what went wrong. So it automatically adjusts with every incoming invoice. It'll automatically adjust for us.
Wow. Okay. And so what is it adjusting by for our listeners? Because I can already hear them saying, okay, that sounds really cool, but it kind of sounds like you're just doing a markup model. Is that what it is?
It is literally a markup model, just protecting us. That doesn't mean, if you're purchasing a truck, your truck's going to change by thousands of dollars, right? We're talking about if you watch your pennies, your dollars will save themselves. That's what we're doing. We don't have these $100,000 increases every week. Yeah. It's just a matter of knowing where it is. And it may not change our pricing. It's just we need to know what's going on. Right?
How do you
It may not change the overall price.
For our listeners listening that find this interesting, who maybe are, building large scale products themselves, maybe they have products that have, 1,000 parts in there. Likely they probably already have a system. But for the people listening, what is this system you're using? Because that sounds pretty complex.
What is our system?
Yeah, like how do you track 1,000, 1,200 parts in a vehicle, and then also are able to kind of manage inventory as well as mark up the price? Like that sounds like a very complex system. What is it?
Well, you know what? And through SOS inventory, and what we do is we put a lot of weight in the people that work with us, and so we have an inventory materials management manager, and that's solely her job is to manage inventory, and that's part of it. And I think on a manufacturing side, that can get out of hand real quick, but having the right people in the right seats, is an absolute must when you're manufacturing. And so for us, we're not afraid of it because we know things are coming. We're not waiting for the next price increase. Obviously, when we do get them, we deal with them in a different way as well.
Yeah.
But there's certain things, like I'll use the tariffs, that, 2 weeks ago, we weren't paying what we're paying now.
Yes.
Right. And it's probably a temporary thing. It is for sure. But we need to know what it is. And we also need to, when you're talking pricing, you also have to have the right people in place to speak with your customer base.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And you have to be able to defend it. We're not just pricing ourselves up or doing increases just to make more margin. If we can explain it, it's not a problem.
Absolutely. BJ, how about you? How do you price software?
So pricing software, there are, as I was thinking about, there are two ways that we price. One is price it for scale. Let's say there's a SaaS product, 1 million people are going to use it. You can charge it at $10 or $20.
Yeah.
Great pricing. But let's say you're launching a very niche product, right? It's going to affect only certain industries, certain people, hundreds of them or thousands of them. You cannot price it at $10. You got to price it by value. Yeah. Right. So one is like the big box companies like OpenAI and others, how they price it. And that's one model, which is a SaaS model. The other one is like the small business model. We price it by value. So I think it's a tough call, actually, because we have to also convince the market that it is the right pricing. It's always challenging, but we are able to, we see where we can offer value in terms of the speed, in terms of efficiency, in terms of the support. Support is one thing when it comes to technology. How much of support do you need? Do you need support, or it's going to be a hands-off approach? If they need more support, more training, obviously it's going to be priced at a higher price. And if it's less support, then we can automate a lot of stuff. We don't need it. We reduce the pricing that way, and we compete that way. So these are a couple ways how we price software. Yeah. But always it fascinates me when it comes to how the big players like Amazons and Walmarts do the pricing for us, because we are everyday consumers also. As much as we produce, we are also buying stuff from other companies, from other brands, right? One example that I came across was a product in Walmart in Pennsylvania at the time. It was probably $8 or $10 exact product, because we used to buying it. So it's the exact same product. We crossed the border. We were in Canada. It was priced for 24 facts. Facts, $24. Wow. It is pre-tariff, this 2018, 100% fact, $24, exact same. I think it's a pack of knives or something. It's some kitchen product, right? Yeah. So then we saw with multiple products, it was three times or 4 times more expensive than what it used to cost in US. So I was thinking what is the original cost of this product? It's not $8, right? It's it's not $24. Yeah. So what is the original cost of this product? So that fascinated me in terms of trying to think deep in terms of what might be the real cost of producing goods. Yeah. That is one thing. And the other example that really fascinates me when it comes to pricing is the Starlink pricing. So Starlink is, so they have basically put up all these thousands of satellites on a low orbit Earth, they're revolving 24/7. Yeah. And it's good. It has really cost them millions of dollars. But when it actually came out to pricing, I believe they charged $400 or $500 for that dish, whatever, and they gave it away for $100 or $150 per month. I think that's a very affordable price, because that's what we're paying for Bell or Telus or Verizon's every day, right? Yeah. So it's a very smart pricing, because they have priced it for scale again. So they want to attract millions of people to go buy that product or service that they're selling. So that fascinated me when it came to pricing. This is what comes to my mind. When it comes to pricing, it's a tough call. How do you price things? It's engineering. It's an art. Pricing is hard. That's why I wanted
It really
to.
is. It really is. It really is. This is a tough one for sure. You know, you mentioned Starlink. I think that's a great example. Another example would be video game consoles. Video game consoles have historically always been sold at a loss, knowing that they can make all the money back if they get the market share and sell the games, right? So I think Starlink is maybe the same kind of example. I'm sure, you know, they're selling the satellite dishes really at a loss, but they're recognizing that over time, they're the only player in the sky to give you Starlink internet, and eventually they'll win the market. So yeah, that's definitely a model. I know, you know, one of the challenges that I faced when I first went out on my own as a consultant for business development was I came from an hourly job. And so in my mind, I was thinking like, oh, well, I just got to charge hourly. And oh, goodness, there's a book, I believe it's called Consulting Success by Michael. Oh, my goodness. I'm sorry, Michael. I'm probably butchering it. Michael Zipwitsky or something along those lines. Anyways, it was a really great book that I read when I first went out on my own. And he was very specifically talking about, as a consultant, how should you price yourself? And you have to remember that as a consultant, as an employee, you went to work 40 hours a week. No matter what, you always went to work 40 hours a week. As a consultant, you only work as much as essentially the clients you're able to bring on. So first off, you're probably only working, let's call it 9 months of the year, as opposed to a full 12 months of the year. So you got to think about that ahead. And then you got to think, okay, well, if I'm only working 9 months of the year, how much of that time am I actually working? Maybe you're only working, let's call it 6 or 7 hour days instead of 8 to 10 hour days. So you got to break all that down, figure out what that hourly number is. Like, how many hours are you going to work? Let's do this as an example here. Let's say that we're talking, you're only going to work 9 months a year. So, and let's say now you're only working, let's call it 5 hours a day. So you're working 25 hours a week. So let's call that 100 hours a month. And now you're only working 9 months. So you're working 900 hours a year, as opposed to before, you were probably working close to 2,000 hours a year, right? So you really have to factor that in. You can't just show up and say, okay, I'm going to charge $40 an hour, because frankly, that's simply just not going to cover you. And I think a lot of people, and you know, I hope we're talking to those people today who are making that jump into consulting. You have to really like, you're not thinking about this. You can't think about it like you used to price yourself as an employee. It is very, very different. So now let's assume that as a consultant, you have overhead costs, maybe you have a vehicle, all of these things are no longer covered by your company. So you need to factor in, first off, what is your overhead costs for the year? Let's say that you have $50,000 a year in overhead costs. Now you also have to factor in how much you want to make. Maybe it's your first year of consulting, you're good making $100,000. So now you need to make $150,000 in 900 hours. This is a really easy way. Take that 150,000, divide that by your 900 hours. You have to be charging bare minimum $166 an hour for your services. I see consultants screw this up everywhere because they don't think about that. They're not thinking like business people. They're not thinking about those overhead costs. They're not thinking about the insurance, you know, and not to mention, we're not even talking general liability insurance, right? But there's a lot of insurances you need. There's overhead costs. There's software costs, right? Taxes, exactly. The other thing is tuck away your taxes every time you get paid. Don't wait till the end of the year. That's my bookkeeper sister really got me nailed on that early, but absolutely. Like, you need to make way more money than you think you do. And I think most businesses are in that spot. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, like consultants pricing is a tough one. And I think the first call, every time when a recruiter calls me for a position or something, like I don't spend 45 minutes for sitting through an interview. I crack the nut in first 2 minutes. Yeah. And like, here's the pricing. Are we good? Yes or no? Like, yes. Don't waste your time. I know your time is worthwhile. 2 minutes, right? I mean, and they find it really like tough to like even have a conversation because like probably after an interview, because it's not coming from a place of because I've spent like time and time again interviewing and after all of that, oh, you're going to price me at $60 an hour? No, thank you. Yeah. Right? It wasted like probably 2 weeks of time. So when consultants are pricing it, try to finish the pricing conversation in the first 5 minutes if you could. I mean, always be ready to walk away from that job or position, whatever it is.
Absolutely.
I mean, don't be desperate, right? I mean, if you don't want to get the job, I mean, it's not the end of the world. You will get a better job.
Yes.
And if they're not ready to pay, rather not work for them, right? So it's as simple as that. So that's my mantra when it comes to negotiating price, when it comes to consider 5 minutes. It's all it takes to negotiate. Yeah.
think you made a great point too, is we use this term a lot, is what is your walk away point? Right? So at what point are you willing to walk away from the business? I think that's very important with pricing. And Kelly and I were talking about this earlier today about, do you just keep working until burnout? If you are, you're probably not charging enough.
Yeah.
It's hard, right? And I have to say that to myself in the mirror as well with other stuff I do. I can get very, very busy and race around and get nowhere. And I'll give you an example with the real estate business, and I'll just use commissions, right? You can, it's a hot seller's market right now. And I have to wade into this. I won't dive into the deep end, but I'll stay in the shallow end here. But in that environment, you would think as a seller, well, there's low rate commission companies out there, right? The property is going to sell. It's going to sell quickly because it's a seller's market. You would think that low rate commission company would be just going nuts.
Yeah.
So busy that they couldn't even contain themselves. Why is it though that they're doing what they do? They're probably not increasing. They're always staying steady, but there's other brokerages charging more. Are they adding more value? Are they perceived differently? I believe they're perceived differently and they're adding more value, right? You're getting what you pay for, but that's pricing. It comes down to pricing. Everything we do in business is somebody's got to get paid, and what are they getting paid for? And are you better off spending your time? Say I have a client, VJ is my client. I focus on him. I do everything I need to. I'm responsive. I'm on top of the situation, and I'm getting paid. And then maybe because I'm charging what I should be charging, I have the time to dedicate to them. Yeah. And that builds my repertoire, that builds my reputation. It continues on. If I'm racing to the bottom, which I could, and I'd be very busy, I could add another 6 or 7 hours a day of manual labor. Which one's a better spot to be?
Yeah. No, you always want to price yourself. Absolutely. Like the goal for everybody in business should be to make the most amount of money that you can for your time, no matter what. Think about it. Think about Elon Musk, right? Dude has the same amount of time as you, right? At the end of the day, he's got maybe 12 hours of work. How much do you think he makes in a day? Couple, 2.5, 10 million, probably millions and millions of dollars in a day, easily, right? His time is simply more valuable than your time. That's just the truth. And so every entrepreneur out there should be aiming to make their time as valuable as humanly possible. That really does need to be your mindset as an entrepreneur. No, that doesn't mean overcharge people. That means charge a fair amount for your value and constantly be building your value.
That's the key, is constantly build your value. And I'll use a keynote speaker, right? A keynote speaker could be $250,000, could be $500,000, or it could be $5,000.
Yeah.
The difference is the value, right? And the experience that the person's speaking. And I've heard retired NHL players, probably, fireside chats, which are horrific. They add no value, but they have the experience. So they're charging $50,000 for a 1 hour fireside chat. All these people buy tables, they eat, they sit there and they listen to a few stories. They get paid for that. Those aren't good. That's just me. I don't know. I don't walk away going like I've left a great movie or something. Yeah. I'm going to conquer the world, right? Yeah. That's different. But I've listened to other speakers. I listened to, they were Navy SEALs, retired Navy SEALs, and they put on an afterburner, it's called. And it was a business workshop. And apparently they were paid, I don't know what it was, $250,000 for the day.
Yeah.
But there was probably 600 people there. Worth every penny of it. Absolutely. Right. So their value is that they're Navy SEAls. And so
what you're saying here is that Navy SEAls are higher value to listen to than a hockey player.
Way better. Yeah.
That's the lesson. That's the lesson here, guys. I hope you got it.
Yeah, the stories are better.
Yeah. It's funny, Colin, because I've actually delved pretty deep into this. Obviously, I did the proposal playbook early on the Business Development Podcast because I've been struggling with proposals. And one of the things that I really learned early on was that you either have to show companies. Now, I'm not talking about pricing B2C. This is not where I'm at. That's not my world. I'm talking B2B pricing. But think about it from a standpoint of whenever you're working with a business, businesses are not going to invest in your product or service unless you can show them the value. It either has to save them money or make them money. The more often that you can tie your results down to dollars and cents, the more you can charge. Because at the end of the day, if you can show them that you are charging them less than the value you are going to provide to them, it becomes a no-brainer. Where companies start to fall flat on their face is when they're showing a price that looks arbitrary because they are not very good at articulating the value of their product and service. How is it going to save them money or make them money? The better that we can get at showing organizations how you're going to save them money or make them money, the more you're going to be able to charge. You can basically, sky's the limit, as long as you can show them that the results are also going to be higher than what you're charging.
Yeah, 100%. All right, 3-minute warning. It's kind of like the 2-minute warning in football. I heard somebody say, go ahead.
I was going to say, we got 3 minutes. Let's take a minute each and wrap it up.
Right. All right. I think the biggest takeaway for me is how can I better add value? Right. And that's what the price is going to be 100% contingent on the value.
Yes. Vijay.
Yeah, I mean, the only mantra that we have is like deliver value for business. That's what it says on my profile. So that's what we go ahead with. I'm absolutely spot on, like deliver value. That's where we are coming from. And I think what I'm learning in terms of pricing is like, how can we match perception versus reality? How can we match these two and then offer something that is meaningful? That's my learning experience from the whole pricing game.
Love it. My takeaway from today, guys, is like I said, whenever you guys are showing pricing to an organization, make sure that you are able to show them the value of your product and service. How are you going to save them money or make them money? If you can tie this down to a dollar amount too, you are going to be infinitely more successful in your proposals. The other side to this is for my consultants. Make sure that you are pricing yourself properly. Okay. If you're coming from an hourly job and you made $40 an hour at that hourly job and now you're providing that same service somewhere else, like I said, we did the math earlier. You probably need to be charging somewhere close to $160, $170 an hour for that very same service, frankly, to probably make about the same amount of money. So factor that in. Understand what are the costs of providing your service, from your vehicle to your taxes. Figure out how much you need to make, and then factor in how many hours you're going to need to work, because as a consultant, you're never working 100% of the time. It is not like an employee job where you're working 40 hours a week. Like that rarely happens. And if you are, you probably are charging too little.
Yeah.
So factor that in, figure out, if you were only working 9 months of the year, 8 months of the year, and then how many hours each day. Figure out the hours, figure out how much your costs are, figure out how much you need to make. Add your costs, add what you need to make, divide it by the number of hours, and that will give you your base cost. Obviously, there's way more pricing models we can talk about, but I think for a lot of people, breaking it down to an hourly amount that they need to make is easy to wrap their head around. I also don't think that's really the best way to do it. I think package plans probably are if you're providing a service, but get there later. If you're just getting into entrepreneurship, if you're trying to figure out how to price yourself, figure out how many hours you're going to work that year, figure out your costs, figure out what you need to make, divide it by the hours, and then adjust from there. But most of you, I can almost guarantee it, are charging too little. If you haven't evaluated your pricing in some time, it's time to do it again.
Absolutely. Well, that's it, fellas. We're at 11:30. So thanks everybody for tuning in again. And
Thank you.
We hope to see you next week.
We'll see you next week. Later, hustlers.